At L&M Fine Jewelry, we hand select our diamonds to give you the very best prices possible. Monty knows a great deal when he finds one. Find your great deal at L&M Fine Jewelry.
Your diamond destination.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Samuel Akem here, and I am back with another one. I appreciate you guys for tapping in to yet another Tuesday video. We are nearing the end of the college football season. We are nearing the end of football season. One more game will be played in the FCS this season. It will be the national championship game on Monday, January 6th in Frisco, Texas, and it will be played against the Montana State Bobcats versus the North Dakota State Bison. I think this is one of the best opportunities the Big Sky has had to get a national championship up to this point, and at least the last 10 to 15 years. I think this is one of the best shots they have. Obviously, Montana had a really good chance last year, but that South Dakota State team was a juggernaut. I'm going to be reacting to the Montana State versus South Dakota game. I'm also going to be reacting to the North Dakota State versus South Dakota State game. That was a great game. Both were good games for different reasons, but both teams that advanced to the national championship did so in great fashion. We're going to be talking about all of it. Please make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. Please make sure you guys hit the like button. Make sure you guys leave me a comment down below of what your thoughts were, and we will get into all of it right now. Okay. Montana State got the victory in the semifinals against the South Dakota Coyotes. It was a great game. It started off really good. It started off back and forth, very similar to the North Dakota State versus South Dakota State game. It started off back and forth. Both teams put up points. Teams were answering. It was a 14-14 ball game early on in the game. And then Montana State started to take over. Their defense really started to bow up. Travis Tice had an amazing game. 14 carries. Travis Tice of South Dakota, 14 carries, 110 yards, a touchdown, a rushing touchdown on an average of 7.9 yards a carry. He also had 7 receptions for 80 yards. No touchdowns there. They did not have any receiving touchdowns in this game. Their quarterback didn't have any passing touchdowns. He was pretty efficient, 20 for 29, 236 yards, but it really seemed like the defense of Montana State, when they needed to stand up, they did. They were good, and they were really good defending the pass, although they gave up some checkdowns to the tight ends and the running backs. I think for the most part, in the downfield passing game, when South Dakota tried to pass the ball down the field, Montana State did a really good job of stopping that. I've been noticing the longer the season goes on, the more games that are played, Montana State feels much more comfortable running Tommy Mellott. Now, in UT Martin, they didn't really need to do that. They won pretty handedly. He threw for 300 yards, though. Granted, that's one of the best rushing defenses in the country in UT Martin. They held him to, I think, 200 rushing yards. It might have been, I can't remember exactly what they held him to. We're going to look at it right now. In that game, they held Montana State to, I think it was 201 rushing yards in that game. So Montana State still was able to run the ball pretty successfully, but not to the extent that they have all season. Tommy Mellott took matters into his own hands against UT Martin. 22 of 25, 300 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and that was really the difference in the game. When you look at this Idaho game, 14 carries, 131 yards. Then you look at the South Dakota game, 17 carries, 125 yards, almost 20 carries on the season. That would have been nearly double, not nearly double because he had 14, but these last 2 games have been his most carries he's had all season. He had 10 against Montana to finish the regular season, and then he had 11 the first time they played Idaho, which was really the middle of the season, but that was their first big test. No surprise, Tommy had 11 for 140 in that game, one of their only ranked matchups. Eastern Washington, which was a pretty close game, 6 for 125 and a touchdown. And their next really big matchup against Idaho, 14 for 131 and a touchdown. So in every big game that Montana State has played this year, Tommy Mellott has been a big reason as to why they have been successful, given his legs and his success with running the ball. Now, he's a great leader. Their defense plays great football this year. Their special teams are more shored up in terms of the kicking game this year. I think they are such a complete team this year. If there were ever a chance for the Big Sky to get a national championship, it's got to be now. It's got to be now. Now, I know I may have some Grizzly fans watching this, and they may be upset. I am a sports analyst, so I look at the game from an objective standpoint, and I'm looking at what the teams look like. Montana State is a better team than North Dakota State. And I will say that these next 2 weeks leading up into that game, Montana State is the better team. They should win this game. I think it's a very good matchup for them. I will talk about that when I'm previewing the game later on in this video. But Montana State looks really good, man. They played really good football. Brent Vigen has done an amazing job with this team ever since taking over in 2021. They went to a national championship with the freshman Tommy Mellott. I think that is when a lot of people at Montana State knew this team could, obviously they went to a national championship with an opportunity to win. They might have won that game had Tommy Mellott not got hurt in that game. Let's not forget about that first national championship game. A big reason why Montana State didn't stand a better chance was because Tommy Mellott got hurt very early on in that game. Similar to when South Dakota State played Sam Houston in the national championship. Mark Gronowski tore his knee up, and they ended up losing that game. That's one of the only losses he has in his career. I really love what Montana State did in this South Dakota game. A South Dakota team who plays really good defense. They beat North Dakota State. They played a really tight game against South Dakota State that went into overtime that South Dakota State ended up winning. But, you look at the way their defense played. They got some pressure on the quarterback. They were able to defend the pass. They were able to defend the run pretty well. Travis Tice obviously had a really good game. But outside of Travis Tice really going crazy in this game, I feel like the defense of South Dakota or of Montana did a really good job of keeping the offense of South Dakota under wraps. They didn't really have any super explosive plays. Looking at it now, their longest play was a run to Travis Tice, and then their second longest play was a run to Charles Pierce for 45 yards. That Travis Tice run going 55 yards. Both of those in the first half. Montana State didn't give up any points in the second half besides a 3 for a field goal. And obviously later on in that game, South Dakota was going for it on some fourth downs when they probably could have got field goals. They ended up going for it because it was that point in the game. But, in a closer game, a game that I thought could have really tested Montana State really passed the test with flying colors. No really hiccups in this game. They did have a drop snap from Tommy Mellott. What does Tommy Mellott do with it? Turn it into a 41-yard touchdown run. Everything that they did in this game seemed to work. They tried to throw some wrinkles in there. They have this double crossing concept that they run a lot with two crossers coming across the field like that, crossing with each other. Ty McCullough scored on it multiple times this year. Taco Dowler has scored on it one time this year. They ran that, but they ran a wrinkle off of it where Ty McCullough, instead of going across the field, ran a corner. He bowed back, ran a corner. South Dakota covered it pretty well. Tommy Mellott had a little pressure in his face, tried to get the ball off to him. It was incomplete. But when they really needed to make plays yesterday, they made plays. Tommy Mellott, particularly in third and short situations, a lot of times this year when he's handed it off, he's pulling it. And he's saying, and maybe that's because a lot of times in the past, the plays were designed to be handed off instead of pulled throughout the season. Now, I think the coaches are giving him an option. They're making it a zone read. You can hand it off or you can pull it. They understand how lethal he is in the running game, and, he's made the most of it. I want to look at his season statistics, his career statistics, season over season. Let's take a look at it. In 2021, Tommy Mellott had 113 carries for 700 yards. In 2022, probably his most successful season running the ball, he had 167 carries, 1,061 yards. Last year, when he was banged up a little bit, he had 85 carries, 690 yards. This year, when he's probably been his most efficient running the ball, but been taking care of himself the most as well, he's at 109 carries, so almost up to that. He'll probably reach it in that national championship game, but almost up to his 2021 total. 109 carries, 915 yards for 14 touchdowns. He's had his most touchdowns this year and his third most carries of his career up to this point in this season. So I think that illustrates how they've made a more concerted effort to run him. But when he is running, it's turning into really, really, really big chunk plays, really successful plays for the offense of Montana State. It's been an amazing season to watch. South Dakota State unfortunately lost. They finished the season 11-3. They get a share of the Missouri Valley Football Conference title, so something to hang their hat on. I don't remember the last time they got the Missouri Valley Football Conference title, but they played a really good season this year. But they just came up against a juggernaut. Montana State has played an amazing season this year, 15-0. They've won an FBS game. They beat all the top competition they played: UC Davis, Idaho twice, South Dakota, the number 4 seed. They've beaten ranked competition. I remember all season people were talking about their strength of schedule. I don't think when you see the way this team plays, the way they beat people, that strength of schedule really needs to hold a lot of weight. Let's take a look back at the Montana State schedule this year and just see what they did against teams. You start the season against New Mexico, you won 35-31. Next, they go to Utah Tech. You won that 31-7. Next, against Maine, 41-24. A lot of people would say they put up those 24 points because the starters of Montana State had come out. Mercyhurst, 52-13. Another one where you could contribute some of those 13 points to maybe some of the backups being in. 37-17 against Idaho State. 55-17 against Northern Colorado. 38-7 against at that point 7th ranked Idaho team. 44-14 against Portland State. 42-28, which to that point, outside of the New Mexico game, was probably their closest game of the season against Eastern Washington. They won that on the back of Tommy Mellott making some plays later in that game, a throw and a run, a really long run. Sacramento State 49-7, UC Davis 30-28, their closest game this so far into the season. They haven't had another closer game outside of UC Davis, and they didn't see UC Davis again. Good for them. Montana 34-11, rivalry at home, handled it. 49-7, UT Martin beat them up. One of the best rushing defenses in the country up to that point. They beat them up. Idaho 52-19, they beat them worse the second time than they did the first time, illustrating that, hey, what is that, 32 points, 33? The first time they beat them by 31. So beat them by 2 more points than they did the first time, but 52 points opposed to 38 points the first time they put up 52 points. Really big time win. And then South Dakota, they beat them 31-17. I mean, I think this team has been on a crash collision for Frisco for a very long time. I can't remember what point it was in the season, but there was a distinct point near the midpoint of the season where a lot of my questions about Montana State had been answered. I was kind of sold. I was like, man, and I told Coulter, you guys can go back and listen to the Big Sky breakdown. I told him this on the podcast. This is the year for a Big Sky team to get it. And if there is any Big Sky team that can get it, it's going to be Montana State. It has to be Montana State. The Missouri Valley has had, let me tell you guys my thinking behind this. For any of you Grizz fans who may be angry at me for thinking this way, I don't care. I'm an objective observer. I'm trying to give my fair take on the game, which this is a very, very fair and very, very deserving take from the Bobcats. They are the best team in the country. I believe that. I've said it early on. I didn't know 100% early on in the season because of some of the strength of schedule things, but they played a common opponent in North Dakota State. North Dakota State struggled against South Dakota. They lost by 1. North Dakota, their first time playing, both times North Dakota State has played South Dakota State, they've struggled a little bit, but they've ended up getting the victories. But against South Dakota, they lost to South Dakota. Montana State just beat them by 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns. And it was close early on in the game, but in the second half of that game, it wasn't really close. South Dakota couldn't get anything going offensively. They were having trouble stopping the offense of Montana State. They ended up getting some stops in the second half, but with that, their offense couldn't put things together. There was a few missed throws, a few missed opportunities that Aiden Bauman missed, but really for the most part, Montana State handled them, and they're the best team in the country, man. And it's their game to lose. They're the number 1 seed for a reason. They earned that number 1 seed. Now they get an opportunity to play in Frisco. They played at home all through the playoffs, similar to how Montana did last year, being the 2 seed. Now you have the national championship against a perennial national championship winner in North Dakota State, the Bison. Tim Polasek going to get his first opportunity. Brent Vegan gets his second opportunity at a national championship, and hopefully he's able to come out victorious with that national championship. We will see. But, it's been an amazing season for Montana State. I know there's going to be a lot of talk leading up to this national championship game. What are the keys? What does Montana State need to do? What does North Dakota State need to do? All of that, and the keys for me for Montana State are really going to be pretty easy for what they need to do to stop North Dakota State. I'm going to talk about that later on in the video, but very exciting time for Montana State. The Bobcats, they're going to Frisco to play for a national championship, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see if they get the job done. It's going to be an amazing atmosphere in Frisco. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be there. I wish I could, but I'm not going to be able to travel to Frisco. But it's going to be an amazing game. You guys let me know in the comments what you guys thought about this Montana State versus South Dakota game. Leave me a comment down below, and I will move.
The Treasure State University of Montana football is a way of life. Lithia Ford has long been a proud sponsor of Grizz football, and Lithia Ford of Missoula is thrilled to have several of the best Montana football seniors driving the best trucks in Montana. Aspen Sound is the premier car audio and accessory shop in Montana. Aspen Sound makes sure the boys are riding in style with tinted windows and state-of-the-art stereo systems. There's always a party in Montana. Whether you're going to a concert, a wedding, or a football game, the Montana Party Bus will get you there. Skyline Sports and ESPN MT cover the Big Sky with more depth than anyone. Check out SkylineSportsMT.com and tune in to Nuanez Now on 1029 ESPN Missoula every day. My Montana Roots and Wear Your Roots clothing is your go-to spot for the most unique and comfortable lifestyle clothing you'll find anywhere. And get your custom t-shirts to support your favorite player. From 5 local businesses who love Montana, best of luck to the Grizz as they pursue another Big Sky Conference championship.
Okay, the next game I want to talk about is South Dakota State versus North Dakota State. The Jackrabbits took on the Bison, and it was an amazing back and forth game in the Fargo Dome. What you expect to be had. The second game between these two teams being played in the Fargo Dome this year. North Dakota State got them at home for the rivalry this year, and they get them at home being the number 2 seed in the semifinals as well. It was a very close game, exactly what you expect. South Dakota State started the game off going 3 and out. North Dakota State got the ball, drove down the field, 2 big pass plays, one big pass play to start the drive to TK Marshall, and then they had a fade route to Bryce Lance, who had a really big game, 6 receptions, 125 yards, 3 touchdowns, the game-winning touchdown on a one-handed catch. And then they threw the fade on that first drive of that North Dakota State drive. They threw the touchdown to give them the 7-0 lead to Bryce Lance. He was really the difference in the game. The completions that Cam Miller was able to complete, and obviously what he did on the ground, but the completions to Bryce Lance, the passing game to Bryce Lance was really the difference in this game. Bryce Lance had an amazing game. He absolutely balled out. He absolutely made the plays when he had to make the plays. He was in the right spots. He won when he needed to win, and it really seems like he's a matchup problem for teams. Now that is going to be a key for Montana State when they face off against them in the national championship, but as it pertains to the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, they were not able to cover him. They even tried to travel a corner with him at times, but it seemed like when they needed to have the right corner on him, the right corner was not on him. They have a corner at South Dakota State, number 4. He doesn't seem like he's their best cover corner. They have another corner, number 7, who seems like he's a better cover corner. I think I've heard that he has aspirations of playing in the NFL. I'm sure all those guys have aspirations of playing in the NFL. But number 7 seems like their better cover corner. He was not covering Bryce Lance on any of the big plays that he had, and that is a problem for me. When you got a really good receiver like Bryce Lance, who's been really balling out in the playoffs the way Bryce Lance has, you have to make an effort to stop him. Bryce Lance is now up to 66 receptions, 946 yards, 16 touchdowns on the season, receiving touchdowns on the season. That is a new North Dakota State record that he passed yesterday with those 3 touchdowns in that game. He was the difference. Their other receivers, TK Marshall, who's a running back, had 20 receptions, 20 receiving yards on 1 reception. Chris Harris, number 19, had 1 reception, 17 yards. Barika Pinu, who's a running back, had 2 receptions, 11 yards. Rajah Nelson, the receiver, 2 receptions, 7 yards. And Trumaine Werremeyer had 1 reception, -1 yard. So Bryce Lance was the difference. I mean, you know what to expect when you play against this South Dakota State defense. They're going to make life difficult for you. They're going to make you earn every yard. The run game, they ran for 150 yards, but Cam Miller ran for 93, the quarterback, 15 carries, 93 yards. He had the most carries. He had the most rushing yards for North Dakota State. Pinu had 6 carries, 28 yards. Shamar Brown, 11 carries, 23 yards. Jackson Williams, who's a receiver and returner, 1 carry, 12 yards, and then TK Marshall had 2 carries, -2 yards. I mean, it was Cam Miller who did everything in this game. 13 of 19, 179 yards, 3 touchdowns, all 3 to Bryce Lance, 15 carries, 93 yards for 1 touchdown, an average of 6 yards a carry. I mean, he almost had 200 yards of total offense by himself, and he had to have every single yard that he got. I mean, he was 100% the unequivocal difference in this game for the North Dakota State Bison. And then you look at South Dakota State. 14 to 25 for Mark Gronowski, not great, which speaks to what I had seen earlier in the season. You don't have Jackson. You don't have the Yankee twins. You don't have the tight end. You don't have Isaiah Davis. You still have a really good team, but this is what it comes down to when it comes down to getting over the top for the South Dakota State team. When you play against better competition, are your weapons good enough to get you over the top? Now, mind you, Amar Johnson fumbled the ball where South Dakota State was in a position to take a 2-touchdown lead. It was early on in the drive, so obviously they still got to drive down, but they had the opportunity to take a 2-score lead. Amar Johnson fumbles it. North Dakota State scores right after that and ties the game. I think that was late in the first half too, so halftime came soon after that. But when you look at Mark Gronowski was near 50% completion percentage, 14 to 25, 204 yards, a touchdown. Amar Johnson, 15 carries, 77 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 fumble. That's not on here. Mark Gronowski, 15 carries, 50 yards, and a touchdown. And then everybody else, I mean, they had 129 rushing yards in the game. If we look back at some of South Dakota's recent games and what they've done on the ground, let's just go back to Incarnate Word. Obviously, they beat up on Incarnate Word. They rushed for 273 rushing yards against Incarnate Word. Let's look at Montana. What did they do against Montana in that Montana game? They rushed for 223 yards in that game. Let's look back at Missouri State, the last game of the regular season. What did they rush for? They rushed for 171 rushing yards in that game. So, I mean, I think they were top 5, top 10 in rushing this season. It seems like they didn't necessarily beat people up on the ground as much as they did in years past. Let's look at this Southern Illinois game. A game before the finish of the regular season, they rushed for 288 rushing yards. So, I mean, you can see the trends of where I'm going at. Let's look at one more. Let's look at North Dakota where they won 38-7. Let's look at how much they rushed for. They rushed for 264. So when you look back at this North Dakota State game, they rushed for 129 yards. 2 rushers basically rushing for all of that. Mark Gronowski with 50 and Mar Johnson with 77. Although they were still in this game with an opportunity to win, you would love for that to be a little bit more successful. Griffin Wilde, their leading receiver on the season, he finished the season with 1,154 receiving yards, 12 touchdowns, 71 receptions. Well done. Amazing season from Griffin Wilde. Hats off to Griffin Wilde. Hopefully they're able to retain him. I know somebody commented, I saw your comment on the video last week saying that Griffin Wilde's a hometown guy. He's from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, so he should stay. I very well expect him to be, but in the transfer portal era, you never know. Great job from Griffin Wilde. Great season on him. 1,100 receiving yards. I mean, amazing. 12 touchdowns. That guy is a player. He's going to be a force to be reckoned with for a very, very long time. He runs great routes, great hands. I mean, he's a very good receiver. I don't know if they'll have Mark Gronowski next year. I believe he has one more year, but I don't know if they'll have him next year. That's definitely something to look out for. But, amazing job of North Dakota State to be able to get this victory. They go down in the game, early on in the game, close to the halftime. They get the turnover. They score it. Cam Miller scores the touchdown on the rushing touchdown, bouncing it out. The other 3 touchdowns going to Bryce Lance on the game-winning touchdown. Bryce Lance catches a one-handed touchdown pass from Cam Miller, once again on a fade. I mean, it just seemed, this is something that I've noticed against this South Dakota State team that you have to be successful for if you're going to beat them, and North Dakota State was successful for him. South Dakota State is going to blitz a little bit. I don't feel like they're a super, super heavy blitzing team, but they do blitz at times. But they're really going to trust their players. They're going to play coverage. They're going to play good zone coverage. And when they play man, they're very, very sound in man. It's rare that you see a lot of completions in man coverage outside the numbers or even outside the hashes against this South Dakota State team because they do such a great job in their man coverage. You're going to get man coverage against South Dakota State. It's something that I particularly point to the Montana game because I cover Montana. I cover the Big Sky a lot, so I point back to that game. But you look back at that Montana game when they tried to hit their slot fades, and it just, or not even their slot fades, outside fades to Keelan White and Sawyer Racanelli. Sawyer Racanelli actually did end up catching one for a touchdown late in the game. But early on in the game, when you see Kali Ayat try to hit those, he's a little bit far with the throws. He overthrows it a little bit far outside, a little bit over the top. You have to complete those against South Dakota State. Cam Miller came out in this game and immediately completed one to Bryce Lance to let them know if it's open, I'm throwing it. And they were amazing throws. And that's the thing is you have to be, that's the thing when you get to better levels of competition. Accuracy matters. Attention to detail matters. You have to be dialed in. Every inch matters. Every little step matters. You look at the game-winning touchdown. It was a review, and it could have been either or, but I think it was because they ruled it. I don't even know if they ruled it a touchdown on the field. I think they had ruled it a touchdown on the field, but game of inches. His foot's barely on the ground with possession of the ball. Had they ruled that ball moved around a little bit, a few inches, that's not a touchdown, and they have to, they still could have kicked the field goal. There was still an opportunity for North Dakota State to win the game, but, every little inch matters, and Cam Miller made it evident that he was aware of that with completing some of those fade routes that he completing some of the passes that he completed, running some of the run plays that he ran. There was another particular play with Griffin Wilde. Please go watch my breakdown of the game. I broke it down in that game, but Griffin Wilde had caught a pass, made somebody miss, and he could have knifed it for the first down. He didn't. This was in the second half. He didn't knife for the first down. He tried to juke, and the guy ended up getting a shoestring tackle on him. Next play, South Dakota State tries to run it for the first down. North Dakota State obviously is aware of that on 3rd and 1. They try to hand it off to Voorhees. Voorhees gets stonewalled in the backfield by the linebacker number 43 of North Dakota State, and that just made me think it's a game of inches. Griffin Wilde, you have the opportunity to get the first down on the play before on 2nd and, I think it was like 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13 or something. Get the first down. First things first in a game like this, and he's only a sophomore. He's a younger player. He's going to learn. you get the first down there, especially in a semifinal game against your rival. You don't know. Do not assume that your guy on the 3rd and 1 run is going to get it. If you have the opportunity on 2nd down to get it, you get it, brother. And that's just some of the things that it made me think about in that game, how every inch, every yard, every pass, every tackle for loss, everything matters way more in that game, and it did. And great for North Dakota State. They ended up getting the victory. They will now take on Montana State in the national championship. It's going to be an amazing game. I cannot wait to watch it, a rematch of the 2021 national championship. Cam Miller makes it back since that 2021 national championship game when he beat this exact same Montana State team. Talk about parity. The lack of parity in FCS football. I mean, Cam Miller hasn't been back to the national. Well, actually, he went back that next year, lost to South Dakota State. But, yeah, so, I mean, the same few teams have been playing in the national championship for the last however long. And it is what it is. 2021, it was Montana State versus South Dakota State. 2022, South Dakota State versus North Dakota State. 2023, Montana versus South Dakota State. And now 2024, Montana State versus North Dakota State. It's like the same 4 or 5 teams playing in the national championship. Maybe eventually that'll be fixed, but currently we got Montana State versus North Dakota State. So you guys let me know what you guys thought about the North Dakota State versus South Dakota State game in the comments, and I will move on.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Right down the road, pump it up, oh yeah.
Okay, we are going to be previewing the national championship game. Now, obviously, North Dakota State and Montana State aren't playing for another 2 weeks, so there's some time in between there, but it should be an amazing game. 15-0 Montana State takes on a 13-2 North Dakota State. Dare I say Montana State's a 3.5-point favorite, which I think is fair, but I think honestly it could move a little more. I think they could win by a touchdown or 2 in this national championship game. I'm not kidding. I mean, I think North Dakota State's a good team, and I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a North Dakota State team in this era that's really going to get blown out, especially in a national championship game. They're just not – I just don't think they're the type of team to allow that to happen. But I think Montana State could potentially do that to this North Dakota State team, especially a lot of these guys being on that 2021 team that lost that national championship game. I think a lot of the guys on this team currently, Brody Grebe, Tommy Mellott, Taco Dowler I don't think was there, but Marcus Weir, Cole Sane, a lot of the guys that were there will have a bone to pick with this North Dakota State team. They remember 21, specifically Tommy Mellott and how he got hurt in that game and how he wasn't able to effectively affect the game. They remember that game. They remember what happened. They remember how much it hurt to walk off that field losing, feeling like probably that they didn't get to give their best shot given that their quarterback that had carried them all the way there wasn't able to affect the game. I think it could be an amazing game. It's obviously going to be a very back and forth game. Obviously, that weekend is when gosh, why am I blanking? That's when the Walter Payton Award is going to be voted on, and the two starting quarterbacks of both these teams are in that finalist voting. Tommy Mellott, Cam Miller. Based on what we've seen, I mean, in that semifinal game alone, they both made a great case to get it. I think Tommy's going to get it. His team is undefeated. They won the Big Sky outright. They were the number 1 seed. I think Tommy Mellott is more deserving of the Walter Payton Award. Personally, I think he's more deserving, but I think both of them have earned the right. 23 of 39, 239 of 329, 3,000 passing yards, 31 touchdowns, 4 interceptions for Cam Miller. 191 for 277, 2,500 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So only 2 less touchdown passes, but also 2 less interceptions, with about 40 less passes for Tommy Mellott, a little more than 40 less passes for Tommy Mellott. I don't know. They're both deserving. They both could get it. I think Tommy Mellott is going to get it. I think he's more deserving as well, being that he's on the undefeated number 1 seed team in the country. Best record for Montana State ever. They're back into the Natty. Obviously, it's already been voted on, but I think Tommy Mellott deserves it. I think he should win the award. Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. But this game, man, this game between Montana State and North Dakota State, it's going to be amazing. I mean, you got two really good blue blood teams in the FCS that are playing against each other. Montana State versus North Dakota State. Both teams are on fire right now. Both teams just got big wins in the semifinals. I mean, this is everything you could ask for, man. Montana State has it right in front of them, the opportunity to win this national championship. The key matchups in this game. What are the key matchups in this game? I'm going to give you two key matchups for Montana State, the Montana State defense. One, Bryce Lance. You have to know where Bryce Lance... Sorry, my chapstick starts to coalesce on my lips and get chunky. You have to know where Bryce Lance is at all times of the game. You have to probably, I don't know if you want to dedicate a safety and a cornerback to him because that leaves you vulnerable in the run game. I think Montana State's run defense is very good, but you need as many hats that you can to stop the run, especially Cam Miller. Have a good spy defender. So my two keys, Cam Miller, Bryce Lance. For the Montana State defense, Cam Miller, Bryce Lance. If you want to stop this North Dakota State offense, you got to stop Bryce Lance. You have to stop Cam Miller. Those are the two keys. Those are the biggest keys. I think if you stop Cam Miller and Bryce Lance, you win this game very handedly. Now, obviously, speaking about it and doing it are two different things. You can talk about stopping Cam Miller and you can talk about stopping Bryce Lance, but you actually have to go out and do it in the game. I think if you can stop the downfield passing game to Bryce Lance from Cam Miller, you really have a good chance of really coming out of this game victorious. I mean, he's good, man. Cam Miller and Bryce Lance, they're on right now. 3 touchdowns, 125 passing yards in this semifinal game against the best defense in college football, one of the best defenses in FCS college football in South Dakota State. That is big time. I don't know. I'm not going to go back and look at the numbers, but I don't know how many receivers have had that many receiving yards against South Dakota State, but I'm sure it's rare. I'm sure it's very rare, and it doesn't happen that often. So for them to be able to do that against South Dakota State, who I think is probably the best collective defense in the country, not even based off the numbers, just based on what I've seen. They play very sound football. For them to be able to do that at North Dakota State, he's definitely somebody you should be keyed in. I'm not super concerned of the run game against Montana State because I think the run game there, North Dakota State hasn't run the ball super successfully in this playoffs. I mean, they didn't against South Dakota State, and I think Montana State is a really good run defense team. And has the ability to be able to stop the run defense of Shamar Brown, TK Marshall, Barika Pinu, all those running backs at North Dakota State. I think Montana State won't struggle with that. I think where they're going to struggle is keeping Cam Miller in the pocket and holding him under control and stopping Bryce Lance. The pass defense is something on Montana State that has been had sometimes where you can get matchups against some of those safeties, particularly Rylan Ort. This isn't a shot at Rylan Ort, but that defense is so good. You have to find the weak link in the defense. And to me, Rylan Ort is that weak link on that defense. If North Dakota State can find a way to get him and influence him, that's a good chance for them to find advantageous matchups in the passing game. You saw it with Jordan Dwyer for Idaho against Montana State. He got a one-on-one situation with Rylan Ort, ran a double move, and it was a big-time touchdown early on in the game for Idaho. Same thing goes. I'm so sorry. It feels like something's on my nose. That's why I keep itching my nose. But same thing for Montana State. And that's how Montana State's defense, I think, needs to stop North Dakota State's offense. For North Dakota State, you have to keep a spy on Tommy Mellott. And I don't think it can be a backer. It has to be a safety. It has to be somebody who can move. Because Tommy Mellott, you can spy him all you want. It's similar to spying Lamar Jackson. Not saying Tommy Mellott is Lamar Jackson. I'm saying in the instance of trying to spy him, they are so quick. They are so fast. If you put a Mike linebacker, even a strong side linebacker on Tommy Mellott to spy him, he is going to outrun them every time. A backer cannot keep up with Tommy Mellott. And number one North Dakota State needs to do is stop Tommy Mellott, particularly in the pass game, because it's not even so much on the design runs. He's getting good yardage on the design runs, like the zone reads and, the design quarterback runs. He's getting good yardage, but the big plays in the run game for Tommy Mellott are coming off of scrambles. So it's when he can't find anything downfield, when he decides to run the ball, that he's affecting the game in a big way. He had one run against South Dakota where he scrambled out of the pocket. The spy wasn't able to get him. He scrambled for about 20-25 yards. Another play where he dropped the snap. It was going to be a handoff to Scott Ray Humphrey. He ends up scrambling for a 41-yard touchdown run. Plays that aren't designed to go to Tommy Mellott are the plays that end up being the biggest for Tommy Mellott. Pass plays and broken plays in the run game. well, really just that one fumbled run play, broken play in the run game. But really on pass scrambles is when Tommy Mellott really gashes you the most in the run game. Obviously on the design runs, the quarterback keepers and the read options, zone reads, he's going to make things happen. He's getting good yardage there, but on the scramble. So the spy is a big thing for me for this Montana State defense, for this North Dakota State defense against Montana State. But also you have to find a way to get penetration in the run game. So stop Tommy Mellott at any cost, and then you have to get penetration in the run game. So I don't know if it's run blitzes, if it's keeping a lot of hats in the box. I still think the best opportunity to beat this Montana State team is by forcing Tommy Mellott to beat you. Now, obviously, he threw for 300 yards against what was it? Was it UT Martin? He threw for 300 yards, 22 for 25, 300 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. Obviously, he's done that, and he's shown he has the ability to do that. But I still think betting on the arm of Tommy Mellott is the best chance to beat this Montana State team. Stopping the run at all costs. Tommy Mellott run, stopping the run of Adam Jones, Scott Ray Humphrey. I don't know the status of Julius Davis, but stopping the run game at all costs and forcing Tommy to beat you with his arm. I think that's still the best way to beat this Montana State team. Now, obviously, Tommy Mellott has shown that he can do that. He has the ability to do that, and they will allow him to do that if the opportunity presents itself. But I don't think allowing them to run the ball. I mean, there's two ways that I think North Dakota State should try to beat this team. Stop the run game at all costs and force Tommy Mellott to beat you with his arm, and keep a spy on him. Keep a spy on him when he's throwing, because he is going to scramble. He's going to find lanes to scramble. Or shootout. You got to get in a shootout. If you don't think that you can stop them on the ground, you think that they're going to keep running up the score, offensively, you have to keep putting up points. You have to keep putting up points. Montana State is going to put up 28 to 31 points in every game they play. I mean, you look at what they've done this year. Let's go back. This is the number one offense in the country. Let's go look at their full schedule. New Mexico, 35. Utah Tech, 31. Maine, 41. Mercyhurst, 52. Idaho, 37. Northern Colorado, 55. Idaho, 38. Portland State, 44. Eastern Washington, 42. Sacramento State, 49. UC Davis, 30. Montana, 30. They have had their lowest scoring output of the season against UC Davis at 30. Utah Tech, they scored 30 early on in the season. Idaho State, they scored 37, but they haven't scored less than 30 against anybody. Montana State is going to put up 30. If you want to beat this team, you have to put up 30 at the very least. That is where it starts for them. We didn't finish. UC Davis, 30. Montana, 34. UT Martin, 49. Idaho, 52. And South Dakota, 31. They put up 30 in every game they've played. At least 30 in every game they've played. If you want to beat this team, particularly talking to North Dakota State, if you want to beat this Montana State team, you are going to need to put up 30. You have to outshoot. If you want to get in a shootout, you can get in that. I don't recommend that, because I think this is a very good team defensively. I recommend trying to stop their offense, not allowing them to put up 30. If you can hold them under 30, we will see. We haven't seen anybody do that this year, but if you can hold them under 30, I think there's an opportunity for you to win this game. Now, what is the likelihood of me seeing that happen? I don't think it's very high. We've seen them play 15 games this season. They've put up at least 30 in 15 games this season, and they've won 15 games this season. So you do the math there. I think the best chance for them to win this game for North Dakota State is try to get in a shootout. You got to match their scoring output. You got to find the matchups on that defense. They're going to have 2 weeks to game plan against this Montana State defense. And mind you, man, credit to Montana State, because this is a team that has been beat up throughout the season. They've taken some injuries. Danny Uiakepa is one that I think of was a big loss to him. He's an older player, senior player, who's got a lot of leadership on that team. But they've had losses at the D-line. They had losses on their offensive line. Justice Perkins, another one who started last year. I think he was like a 3 or 4 year starter for them. Did not play this year. Cole Sain ended up taking over the job by the time Justice Perkins got healthy. Sorry, man. We can't mess up. I mean, and that's one thing that matters is offensive line cohesion. You got to outshoot them. You got to get in a shootout with them. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a very exciting game. My keys are Cam Miller, Bryce Lance, and then Tommy Mellott and that offensive line getting pressure. Defensively for both teams, those are my keys. Offensively for Montana State, Tommy Mellott. You let it all hang out in this game. And I know you got hurt in the last national championship game, and that's what may have lost you guys that game. I don't care about that. You let it all hang out in this game if you're Montana State. You put every chip on the table on the back of Tommy Mellott. He is what got you here. Him being healthy all season, along with the other great players that you have on your team, Brody Grebe, Adam Jones, Scott Ray Humphrey, the offensive line. I mean, you have great players, Taco Dowler, Rohan Jones, Ty McCullough. You have great players everywhere. Rylan Ort is a piece of that. McCade O'Reilly. You have great players everywhere. I'm not going to go down the whole list. I just went down a ton of them. But you put your chips on Tommy Mellott's back. He is a big, big reason why you are here. You leave it all. Give him 20 carries if it calls for that. Give him 25 carries if it calls for that. You have to lean on him. That is the offensive key for Montana State. The offensive key for North Dakota State, same. Cam Miller. Cam Miller is a big reason why you were here. He has been carrying this team when at moments you needed him the most, he stepped up. I think particularly the East Tennessee State game, when he needed to step up, he stepped up in a big way and made plays late in that game that won them that game. Please go watch that breakdown back if you don't remember that game. You lean on the quarterbacks in this game. These are two teams who have leaned on their quarterbacks all season. Their quarterbacks throw the ball. Their quarterbacks run the ball. This is a game where you let it all hang out and you lean on those quarterbacks. You lean on them 100%. You allow them to get you there. You allow them to get you over the top. You allow them to be the reason. Allow the quarterbacks to be the reason for you winning the national championship. I told you this is a preview. I'm going to give you my thoughts. I think Montana State should be a heavy favorite in this game. I know the line is at 2.5, 3.5. I think Montana State should be a heavy favorite in this game. I think they can win by 2 scores plus. This Montana State team is very good. This Montana State team has played the best ball that I've seen from them. Obviously, I got to Montana in 2016. I've obviously followed both teams. Montana State has been on the up and up since I got here. Montana was down when I got here. We were up, and now we're kind of just better than average in the FCS, but still not where Montana has been in the past. But for Montana State, they have looked so good this year. I'll go back to that New Mexico game. I didn't know what to expect from the team after the New Mexico game, but that gave me a lot of indication of what to expect from them. They came back and got the victory. The 2-minute drive at the end of the game where Tommy Mellott had to make throws. They also had to run the ball. I mean, it was beautiful. The Adam Jones run before that, beautiful. I mean, that comeback in that game to go through all the adversity they went through that game and still get that victory, amazing. I like North Dakota State, but I've seen North Dakota State bump their head. They lost to South Dakota. Mind you, Montana State just played South Dakota and beat them by 2 scores. North Dakota State lost to them by 1 score. I really, really like Montana State in this game. It's a very good matchup for them, particularly with the run defense. I know North Dakota State plays good defense. They have good backers. They have a good front seven, but I don't think their defense plays as strong as South Dakota State does. Now, I know North Dakota State just held South Dakota State to 130 rushing yards in the game, but Montana State is not South Dakota State. Montana State is a better team than South Dakota State this year. Montana State is the best team in the country this year, and I really like them to come out victorious in this game. You guys let me know what you guys think about them in the comments. If I had to give a score prediction, currently, right now, where they stand, I would give a 38-28 score prediction for the national championship with Montana State coming out victorious in that game. You guys can let me know what you guys think about that in the comments, and I will move on. Okay, I'm not going to be talking too much longer. Obviously, it's near the end of the FCS football season. There's a lot of topics outside of the FCS playoffs to talk about, but I don't want to get too off track of the FCS playoffs. If you guys want me to cover some other things that are going on in college football right now, you guys can let me know in the comments, and I can drop a video about it. You guys can leave me your comments, questions down below. I can cover all of that. But what I do want to talk about briefly is the Ivy League and how they will participate per Pete Thamel. The Ivy League will participate in the FCS playoffs starting next season. Now, let me say this. I don't have many thoughts about the Ivy League. We're going to look at the Ivy League right now. Let's see if my second screen is up. Nope, still down. I'm still not able to figure out the second screen capture right now. But looking at the standings this year, it looks like Harvard would have been in the FCS playoffs. Now, I have many questions about this FCS playoffs and Ivy Leagues getting in the FCS playoffs. Does that mean they get an automatic qualifying bid? I'm sure it probably does. Does that mean they play more games? Because the Ivy League season starts like a week or 2 later than the regular FCS season. I think it was 2 weeks later this year because they only play 10 games. So they only play 10 regular season games. Let's look at Harvard, for example, who won the Ivy League this year. Started their season off with Stetson. They won. Brown. They played New Hampshire, who was another non-conference game. But Brown, that's a conference game. Cornell, conference. Holy Cross is a non-conference game. Princeton, Dartmouth, Columbia. So it looks like they play 6 conference games. Let's go back down there. They play 7 conference games. So they have 3 non-conference games. Harvard, for example, their 3 non-conference were Stetson, New Hampshire, and Holy Cross. All teams, I don't know where, I think Stetson's in Florida, if I'm not mistaken. No, they're in Massachusetts. Wow. Wait. Well, this game is being played at Harvard, though. So that's why they're in Massachusetts. I think Stetson is in California. I think Stetson is in Florida, though. I don't know. You guys can let me know in the comments where Stetson is at. But New Hampshire, they beat New Hampshire. New Hampshire actually was a pretty good team, if I'm not mistaken, in the CAA this year. Let me go all the way back to my rankings. I'm pretty sure New Hampshire was a playoff team this year. So Harvard beat New Hampshire this year. Which is a really good win for them. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't really know what to think about these FCS playoffs. I really don't know what to think about Ivy League making the FCS playoffs. I think it's good for the FCS playoffs. I would love if not only, and I know all the money, you guys don't have to go into the money, you guys don't have to get into everything, but the Ivy League and the HBCUs, I wish they all played in the FCS playoffs. Now, I know the Celebration Bowl brings a ton of money. I know all the bowl games they play brings a ton of money. I know the timing wouldn't work out, but I would love to see HBCUs in the FCS playoffs. Now, I know sometimes those MEAC teams can get into the FCS playoffs, and they haven't fared very well. It might be MEAC or SWAC. I know FAMU's made it a little bit. South Carolina State made it last year. They make it. North Carolina Central, I think, actually made it last year. They got beat up by Richmond. But, I would love if all the FCS teams played in the FCS playoffs to really get a true gauge of where those teams land. But if you're looking at so I guess Harvard and Dartmouth both shared the Ivy League title this year. Dartmouth lost to Harvard, so Harvard probably would have got the automatic qualifying bid due to the fact that they lost to Harvard. They lost to Harvard this year. But both 8-2 teams, you add 2 more games, or at least 1 more game on top of that. Gotta believe it's probably 9-2 or 8-3. I think those are both playoff rosters, playoff records. But then it becomes the point to where, like, how good do you think the Ivy League is? Because if you look at the number 1 defensive team in the Ivy League was Columbia. They finished the season 7-3, 5-2 overall. They gave up an average of 16.1 points a game. That's the best defense. And then you look at the champion in the Ivy League, Dartmouth. They gave up 21 points a game, and or Harvard gave up 21 points a game. Dartmouth gave up 23.9, almost 24 points a game. So, not the best defensive output. Columbia has good defense, but they probably wouldn't have been in the playoffs. Dartmouth and Harvard probably would have at 8-2. Say you add another game on there. Say they lose it, they win it 9-2 or 8-3. I think both are playoff records, playoff resumes. But the question becomes, how good do you think the Ivy League is truly? Do you think the Ivy League competition that they're playing against is upper tier top competition? Or do you not think very highly of the Ivy League competition? Because that's really what it comes down to. I mean, when you look at the top half of the Ivy League, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there's 8 Ivy Leagues. 4 of the Ivy Leagues were 7-3 or better. 4 of the Ivy Leagues were 4-6 or worse. So Cornell 4-6, Princeton 3-7, Penn 4-6, and Brown 3-7. But then you got Yale 7-3, who I believe won the Ivy League last year. Columbia 7-3, Dartmouth 8-2, and Harvard 8-2. So I don't know. Their non-athletic scholarship league, which is not very different from the Pioneer League, but they are academic scholarships. But I know sometimes the Ivy League can get some really good players due to the fact that some guys want to go Ivy League for academics, and they end up just playing football as well, and they just happen to have been a 3-4 star player in high school, but they prefer the Ivy League. I think it's going to be very exciting. It's going to be very exciting to see the Ivy Leagues in the FCS playoffs. What do you guys think about that? Are you guys excited about Ivy Leagues making the FCS playoffs? Or are you guys kind of like, they're not going to really move the needle? I think it just adds another layer to, what people want to see. It's going to be exciting to see more teams in the FCS playoffs. It's going to be exciting because that adding the Ivy League lessens the pool for another team to make it in. So an NAU probably wouldn't have made it this year. A Southeast Tennessee State might have not made it in here. I'm talking about the last 4. Some of these teams might have gotten in over some of those teams, so that's something to consider as we look at these teams making the FCS playoffs as well. Either way, I think it's a good development for college football. I think it's a good development for FCS football. You guys let me know what you guys think about that in the comments, and I will move on. Okay, I want to give some of my final thoughts of the semifinal week of the FCS playoffs. It was an amazing weekend. South Dakota State, North Dakota State, Montana State versus South Dakota, the Big Sky MVFC battling it out for a chance to play at a national championship. Just what you like about FCS football. The FCS season is coming to an end. It's been an amazing season. Greatly upped my content output this season from last year, dropping a ton of content. You guys can let me know what you guys have thought about it. If there's anything else I can add. I was with the FCS Nation guys. No, it wasn't FCS Nation. I think it was the FCS Nation guys or the South Dakota Jackson Illustrated guys. And they were telling me that I should look at potentially doing a live sometime. I don't know what that would look like. I have looked into it. I do want to start doing some things live. That may be postponed till next season. But I do want to do some sort of live something during the football season. I definitely think that would be a great idea. I think it would appeal to a lot of people who pay attention to my channel. I think it would give an opportunity to me to interact with you guys live in that standpoint. So you guys can let me know in the comments what you guys think about me potentially doing some live things. If you guys have any ideas of anything that I could do live, you guys let me know. But I got some great ideas that, would take some time to iron out, but I think they'd be awesome. It just takes some legwork, so we're going to see. But growing the channel, growing my subscribers. Please make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Make sure you guys comment down below. We will be covering the national championship coming up. Obviously, it's going to be a really, really good game. Montana State, with their opportunity to go 16-0 and win the national championship, will be a great feat for them to accomplish. Tommy Mellott with the opportunity to win the Walter Payton Award. Don't remember the last time a Montana State player did that, but great things happening in FCS football. Great things going on in college football. Great things going on in professional football. We are going to shift the channel following the end of the FCS football season to obviously doing more player breakdowns, but also talking about the more broad scope of college football in general and college sports in general. So you guys stay tuned in for that. But I appreciate you guys for tapping into the channel. Make sure you guys let me know anything you guys want me to do on the channel. Leave me a comment down below. But subscribe. Send this video to a friend. Like the video. And I will catch you guys next time. See you later.